Accessibility is sort of best thought about in terms of the accessible journey and the accessible route. So an accessible journey is about someone being able to decide to leave home, use transport or wheel or walk or whatever to a particular public building, public space, and then be able to get home again. So the journey is about being able to leave, get somewhere and get home again. The accessible route is about once you actually get to where you're going, say whether you're going to a park or, as you say, somewhere like this, wherever it happens to be, is actually being able to get into, through and out wherever you actually are. The reason that I've suggested that we come to Margaret Mahy, it's an example of having to weigh up all the different challenges, like in this particular instance, safety, challenge, accessibility, all of those, and how, if that's actually thought about early enough and you include the user perspective as well, people with disabilities using it, how it can be a really good example of an accessible playground like this. It isn't absolutely accessible to everybody, but there is enough accessibility so that you can have an inclusive sort of environment, because it's really important in the planning stages to think about it really early at the whole concept stage. So the planning part and inclusion of accessibility needs to come in two parts. What our experience has been, both in Christchurch and across New Zealand, is that there are two parts. One is that in the planning it's important to get the user experience input, so it's consultation with the users, but it's also really important to get the technical detail that's required to make an accessible space, because they're quite different. A user has quite personal experiences, whereas the technical detail is about how to apply the legislation to get the best possible level of accessibility that you can. And I think it's also important to understand that sort of disabilities aren't always just the ones that you see in a wheelchair. There's a lot of hidden disabilities that you aren't aware of, and that it's important to plan for those as well. You don't have to give away aesthetics to have accessibility. Through early planning and continuing that planning and consideration of accessibility all the way through, all of those features like safety, aesthetics, accessibility can actually be included in the plan, and they can actually sit side by side. They're not competing. It's just, and it's all about an inclusive sort of environment that we've been creating.